收到啦。
講得好似有個衞生。
咩啊？講多次。
點搞錯？佢帶住咁大把刀嘅？
明白。
情報話目標喺南邊過緊嚟啊。
Sleeping Dogs. In Sleeping Dog you play as Wayne Shane, an undercover police officer tasked to bring down the sun on Yi.
你捉個 Wei Shen 先好啊。
He's early.
I'm not fucking blind.
Relax, old boy. We're on the same side, remember?
條友都幾串喎。喂，有冇貨？
Yeah, you got the money?
The gameplay in Sleeping Dogs is pretty good in the beginning, but that's just because you still learn everything, until it becomes quick time event the game. I mean, there's a quick time event for you to, you know, struggle away from grabbing attacks, to counter people, to disarm people. The only sequences where you are full control of your player movement is when you're having a gun, which isn't really all that good. The shooting gameplay, I mean the shooting sections of this game isn't really all that good. It's, to be honest, a bit horrible, but it works, so I could say it's kind of mediocre, if you could say that. And when you're just attacking people with combos, the only thing with that is that some combos takes a lot of time to build up, but you still need to counter people, so some combos won't really matter in them because you can just stand there and, you know, wait for them to attack you, and then you can just counter that shit and then just rise and repeat until they're all dead. So you could say that the gameplay isn't really all that deep. The same with the free running aspect of the game. Sure, sometimes it might, you know, be better sometimes, but that's, you know, the whole gameplay really. Sometimes it's better than the last time, and sometimes it's worse than the last time. But with the free running aspect, it's pretty, you know, linear, if you can say so. You don't really have, calling it a free running aspect is still, you know, taking it a bit far, because you can only jump through some things, you can only hop to some parts, you can only jump high from some, you know, areas and shit. So they could have just called it, you know, a railroad running sequence, because that's really what it is. You can also level up in this game. You have 5 kind of leveling systems, I'm gonna say. So I mean, you can level up your health, then you need to visit, you know, shrines, health shrines, to, you know, pray or something, and then eventually when you get 5, then your health go up with 10%. The only thing with that is that you can, you know, do that shit right away. You also have a melee skill sections which you need to collect statues and then give it to a person, then you can unlock special moves, which is, you know, kind of good. I mean, it gives variety and everything. And also talking with variety, the gameplay isn't really all that good, but they keeps it alive with, you know, this skill sequence and everything, because there are 2 other skill points, skill systems, and that's cop and triad. So those 2 systems keeps the gameplay alive, because you need to, with triad skill points, you can only gain triad point when you're playing missions with the triad, but you can also gain cops points with that. While when you play an ordinary a case mission, I mean a police officer mission, then you won't gain any kind of triad, you know, shit. The only thing with, you know, those 2 skill systems is that you can, with police skill, you can never gain any police, you know, I mean, you get like 3 stars or something that you need to fill, or it gets empty. I mean, with police, all 3 are, you know, full, but if you do stuff like killing civilians, destroying property, or just being clumsy, which is just, you know, annoying, because sometimes the game doesn't really react to your free running shit, then that's, you know, takes away 5 points from your cop level. And the same with the triad, that you can never really lose triad points, you can only gain triad points. And it just doesn't seem all that balanced, because, well, it's just really linear. I mean, you can only gain triad points and you can only lose cop points. But like I said, I mean, it still keeps the gameplay alive and well. Otherwise, the gameplay would just, you know, slowly, you know, die out. But still, it still all depends on, you know, how good or bad you are at all those skills during the missions. With the skill points, because every time you finish, you know, a level, I mean, go up a level with any of the triads or cops, you get a skill point which you can, you know, use however you want to. Some skills are of course better than others, but the only thing that the skill tree is pretty linear as well. It's not really like an open tree, just 3 it's just, you know, 2 lines that, you know, go straight. And it isn't really all that many skills, I mean, that really matters that much. The last skill thing you have is face, and it's like respect. I mean, the more, I mean, you get it from doing favors and shit. But the only, you know, thing that, you know, talks badly about this skill thing is that you can only gain any of these skills during missions, meaning you won't gain anything during free run or anything, because well, you won't gain any. Then the gameplay pretty much dies up, because why should you fight them when you aren't gonna gain anything? Sure, you might, you know, get some clothing and shit, but and some money and from lockboxes and shit, but it still takes away a bit of the energy in the gameplay, because the gameplay is pretty much, you know, not really all that good, but it's kept alive because of this skill system, and when it's away, then what's the point? With side mission, of course, there's a variety of side mission, but the only thing with that is that there's also a lot of those side missions, meaning that one side mission is that you need to, you know, drug bust, I think it's called, and you really need to do everything again and again and again and again. Later you can also hack cameras for no reward whatsoever, which, you know, I don't really get it. I mean, you need to hack cameras to, you know, catch or arrest those, you know, person doing drug deals. And later, after you complete all those missions, you can still hack cameras, but for no reason whatsoever. I mean, you don't get anything out of them, only that, you know, you have every camera in the city in your television. I mean, surveillance system. Other than that, you can of course race. Sometimes it's, you know, better than last time, but it also becomes, you know, a repetitive piece of shit, because it's really the same shit over and over again. You can also do favors, which is a bit of variety there as well, but sometimes it's usually the same concept again and again. You can also date different people. The only problem with that is that you will never ever meet them again after that, which makes that dating pretty much useless, from the exception that after you complete the date, they unlock every collectible item on the map. I mean, like lock boxes, health shrines, jade statues for the melee thing. So that's the only point with the dates, is that they unlock every goddamn collectible in the whole goddamn game. Other than that, those date missions are pretty shitty, to be honest. But the challenge, like I said in the beginning, is that in the beginning it's, you know, good. It's a bit hard because you still learn everything until you realize that it's just quick time event the game, and then it's just repetitive. You need to just sit there until they, you know, attack you and you counter them, or if some other quick time event comes like F or something. Sometimes pretty, you know, annoying, because sometimes you won't be able to see what sort of button you need to press until it's too late. Other than that, the camera is pretty horrible sometimes. Example, like when you're fighting and you lock on to a person, the camera is then stuck. You can't move the camera at all. But if you know, don't, you know, lock on a person, then you're free controls your camera. Sometimes also when you drive, it doesn't seem like the camera actually knows where you're looking, so it's, even though, I mean, if you start driving backwards, then the camera will, you know, pan towards the car. And then when you stop, you know, change the camera so that you see your back. But then when you start to drive, then it automatically goes back to your front view, and then slowly turns to your back view, even though you already turned it there. So it doesn't seem like the camera works all the time. But that's only sometimes. Eventually it might become, you know, I mean, it might grow on you, so it don't really matter in the end. I mean, eventually it might not matter. Also that the camera is, you know, okay when you're not moving, but as soon as you start to move, it seems like the camera like jams to your forward view, so you can't really turn the camera, it just gets stuck there. Eventually, I mean, until you know, turn to that area, then the camera follows. But otherwise it seems like the camera is stuck when you move. So like I said, the gameplay is pretty good in the beginning, because you're still learning everything, until later it becomes quick time event the game, then it becomes a repetitive piece of shit. But it's still kept alive because of this skill system that you need to earn, and it's probably gonna survive like that. And I mean, the gameplay is probably gonna survive until you max out all the skill systems. Then the gameplay might become horrible. But what about the story then? Well, the story is, I mean, it has its ups and downs. It goes up and down, the story, between, you know, bad, good, and everything. You could say that the story have like two versions. The undercover cop version and the tried version. In the beginning, the undercover cop version is, you know, better than the tried version. Later it becomes on the same level, but like I said before, it goes up and down. The only problem is that it doesn't seem like they connect so well. I mean, it's like you can only do that or you can do this. I mean, there are no connection or anything. You don't really, connect anything. It's not like you are undercover doing the triad mission or you are triad on the undercover mission. I mean, they're too separated to each other. You don't really, I mean, it doesn't connect to each other. You don't seem so undercover doing the triad missions, but you don't see so much, triad in the undercover mission. So it's it's not like you, I don't fucking know how to say it. I mean, like I said, I mean, you're only doing triad on this one, and you're only doing undercover on this one. It's not, connected like a triad mission. You're a bit triad, and you're doing a bit undercover work as well. Otherwise, you're just doing triad work, or you're just doing undercover work, and that's the problem. It doesn't really connect to each other during the whole game. Of course, you're still, undercover, but you don't do anything undercover-ish during the triad missions. So it's so distant to each other, not only what you do, but also what it's about. It would have been better if they just, connected the story with just one version, the undercover cop version, undercover cop in the triads. Sure, of course, they talk to you about, they're a bit skeptical at the beginning that you might be undercover, but that's it really. I mean, it's not like a mission that it begins, you're like a triad doing triad stuff, but then in the middle of the mission you do some undercover shit. Then it's connected, but now it's not. But that's the only problem with the whole story, that it seems like there are two versions of the story and they don't really connect so well. With the characters is that the only characters that they build up are characters that something's gonna happen to. I mean, I'm not saying that they're doing anything bad or everything, they're doing it good, but every character that they build up, something's going to happen to them, and the character they don't build up, nothing's really gonna happen to them. And of course they introduce them and all, but that's, it. They don't really build them up so much. But those that do build up, something's gonna happen to them. As it's a big significant to the story. You could say that some characters they try a bit too much at, but that's because those are really the only characters that they are building up in the game, and something's always they're only gonna happen shit to those characters. I mean, the only character that they are building up, something's gonna happen to them. I'm not saying that they are doing something better or anything. It's just a bit, mediocre, that all other characters they only introduce and never build them up, but that's because nothing really big is gonna happen to them. But those people that they build up, this on everyone there's something's gonna happen that they build up, and that's I mean, it's not bad how they build them up. They build them up in a good way. It's just that it's just them and just those that they build up. No other person, nothing's really gonna happen to them. It just a bit mediocre. There are also those sequences when they talk about the character and the game seems like you should, feel something for the character, but you don't even know what they look like. You just heard their fucking names, but the games feel like, oh shit, he died, damn, I always liked that guy, but you never really met him. Occasionally that happens, and that's really not all that good. Another thing is also that they don't really explain so much about the game, especially in the beginning, and it's also a bit jumpy sometimes. That's at the first you're here, but then all of a sudden you're here, and they don't really tell what's happened in between. But anyway, with the explanation, a main problem with that is that in the beginning of the game they say that something happens to Wayne Shane's family, but they never really fully say what happens. I mean, they give hints what happened, but the problem is that it doesn't really seem all that big of a deal. So they could have, said it right off the bat in the beginning, but they never did. And the problem with that was that it was kind of the driving force with the whole character of Wayne Shane. I mean, what happened to his family, how he acted. I mean, he acts the way he does because of what happened to his family, but what really happened to the family? Well, they didn't say anything, so it must have been something big. Well, eventually it doesn't seem like it was anything big, and they never really confirm it either. Also, that the game relies really much on the player to read all the documents or dossiers or what. I mean, after some mission you get like documents on characters, on recent events, on Wayne Shane's, on Wayne Shen information, on personal information. Problem is that that the game relies too much on the player to actually read that shit, because during the game they are acting as you should have read it. Of course, with the person that did take proc about a person in the game acts as if you should have known him. I mean, sometimes they do take some people that you have met, but you don't really spend so much time with them. They probably haven't really said their name. You only met them in some situation and everything. Of course, you could say that the game sacrifices a lot of realism then, but I don't really see what the game got out of it. Other than that, the gameplay is a bit alright. Like I said in the beginning, it goes ups and downs and everything. It seemed like there was a twist going on or something was going to happen that really changed the whole game. But it didn't happen, or it happened and it didn't really make a whole lot of difference, or that it just went by without any notice. Because in the beginning of the game it's good because it's pretty, you know, slow. You get everything to you, some information about the Sun on Yi, the Triads, Winston, a Dragon Head, all those person. But eventually after a specific point in the game where the story was actually very good, then it's just becoming, I mean, you progress into the story a bit too fast. I mean, you're killing off, you know, gang leaders here and there, breaking into compounds easy as, you know, what the fuck, you're winning races as the fucking master. And I mean, it's just a bit too fast because of how it was before. Before it was pretty slow to get, you know, to Winston and everything, go up to Winston and eventually go by his side. But after that, it just becomes, you know, straight on, you know, too fast, to be honest, because it wasn't like that at the beginning. I mean, like in the beginning, you first like was an ordinary thug, then you were a soldier, then you got a bit up, you got to know Winch and everything. Then all of a sudden you're a Red Pole, and you're one of the, you know, heads of the Triads in Hong Kong, and it's just a bit too jumpy near the end of the game, or later acts of the game, if you can say that. Another thing is that in the end of the game you break into a compound which seems, you know, pretty easy to get into, which just gets serious. Why the fuck didn't you do this in the beginning? But eventually the game, I mean, the story doesn't survive it to the end. It kind of dies out. I mean, it goes up and down and everything. Eventually it's kind of bad, then it becomes good again. Then when it's, you know, when the game story progresses faster, then it just becomes better and better and better, and eventually goes up and down, and then it just ends a mediocre, because it doesn't really make it to the end, if you could say that. I mean, the story, it doesn't really make it to the end. The ending is pretty, you know, not really a big deal. It kinda goes by without a hint or a notice or anything. It just goes by without you noticing it, and eventually the end. Of course, you do notice that, oh, this is probably the end, but the ending sequence isn't really all that big of a deal. Or, I mean, the game didn't make a big deal out of the ending sequence. So the story doesn't really make it to the end. In conclusion, like I said, the gameplay is alright in the beginning until it becomes quick time event the game. Then it just becomes a repetitive piece, but it's still kept alive because of the skill trees or whatever you want to call them. The only problem with that is it doesn't really seem all that balanced, because you can never gain a couple points and you can never lose tried points. And you can only gain these points in missions, I mean story missions, which makes free roaming pretty much useless. Unless you go on a side mission, then you might, you know, get some phase points, which kind of like respect you. You need phase points to buy different clothing and cars, but eventually you will probably max out phase pretty fast, and then it really becomes, you know, it becomes pretty pointless, all these side missions, because of course you can still, you know, earn money and shit, but otherwise no. The story, like I said, it has its up and downs, but it's still, you know, split into two versions, it seems, the cup version and the tried version. The only bad thing with that is that it doesn't seem like they never really connect to each other. I mean, it's not like you, in a tried mission, you do some undercover shit, and it's not like in the, oh no, the other side run, but I would mostly say in the tried version, you didn't really seem that undercover during those missions. I mean, it was too distant to each other. I mean, those sequences when you were supposed to be undercover, they were a different kind of missions. While tried missions, you're only gang related shit. But you know, it's like it's two different things really. So it would have been better probably if they were more connected to each other. The same with the characters. The characters are, you know, they build them up good. The only bad thing with that is that the only character that they build up are the character that something's gonna happen to. All the other characters, is not really something big is gonna happen to them. They don't really build up, they only introduce them. Also that the game relies much on the player to read all the information on your phone. Also that in the later acts of the game progress very fast, because to give a sample, let's talk about the houses. The first house you have the house pretty a long time. But then when you get your other house, you have it a bit of a mission, then all of a sudden you get a new house, then after like 2 missions you have your fourth and final house. And it seems like it's progressing a bit too fast in the later act of the game. It feels a bit, well, it isn't really all that good, because you don't really get all information that is around you. Which is also another thing, the explanation. They don't really explain so much in this game. They don't really explain the whole dying force with Wayne Shane and everything. And like I said before, they rely a lot on the player to actually find the information themselves on the phone. And also act that way during the game that they act as if you have read it and everything. But anyway, in conclusion, the game doesn't really have anything really fucking good about itself, but it doesn't really have anything really fucking bad either. So like I said, it goes a bit up and down and shit. The gameplay is, mediocre, and in the beginning it's good, but then it becomes mediocre, and eventually it might become bad because if the system, the skill system dies, because it becomes pretty much pointless then. And it's pretty repetitive as well. The story is the only thing that really shines in the game. In the beginning it's a bit bad, and then it gets better, but then it gets bad again, then this goes ups and downs and everything, and eventually in the end it doesn't really make it. And the ending goes by without any kind of attention. There's also a lot of fucking bugs in this game, a lot of game destroying bugs, if I could say so. Some things like, for example, the lockboxes. In the lockboxes you were supposedly supposed to find clothing, and of course money or guns. But for some reason you don't always get your clothing that you found. It's never really put in your wardrobe, which makes it very limited of what you can have on you. But anyway, like I said, the whole game is up and down. From bad to good to mediocre to horrible to good again to bad. So it's a bit hard to actually say a point. But like I said, the gameplay is mediocre, if not bad, near the end of the game. The story is, good, mediocre, but eventually near the end it doesn't really make it to the end. So I would say that Sleeping Dog, it's a mediocre game. Sleeping Dog is a mediocre game. Yeah, it's a mediocre game. Because the story was sometimes better than it was the last time, but the gameplay always stayed the same, a bit mediocre, and still just kept alive because the leveling system which doesn't really make that much of a difference, because some of the skill things that you can unlock doesn't really matter so much. So like I said, in the end, Sleeping Dogs, it's a mediocre game. Because like I said before, it doesn't really have anything bad about itself, but it doesn't really have anything good about itself. It's all on this level that, well, it works. It isn't really the best thing ever made, but it isn't so bad because it actually works sometimes. It's just that sometimes it's phased out because of other things, like the gameplay. The gameplay isn't all that good, but it's kept alive because of this skill system. But then it kind of dies out because in the free roaming aspect of the game, you don't have access to those skill systems, because you can only gain skills points when you do missions. So it kind of phase out each other. The gameplay fades out because it's phased. The bad thing about the gameplay is phased out because of it's actually got a skill system that keeps the gameplay alive. But that's phased out because in the free roaming aspect, you don't really gain anything, so makes all those fighting things in the free running aspect pretty fucking useless. Other than that, that should be everything. Like I said, it goes up and down, this game. Sometimes I say, well, yeah, it's a good game, or it's mediocre, or maybe it's better. And sometimes it's just really bad. But I would say that truly that in the end, Sleeping Dogs, it's a mediocre game. It has a couple of bad things, it has a couple of good things, but in the end, with everything together, it's all mediocre. But you know what? No, because I've done some thinking, and the thing with the story is that it tries to get somewhere, but it doesn't get anywhere. With that, I mean the end. The story tries to be serious sometimes, and sometimes it actually, achieve that. They do a good job at making the story serious, but it doesn't get anywhere after that. And with that, in the middle part of the story, the story is good. It tries to be serious and they succeed with it, but later it just loses and it isn't on the same level as it was in those sequences of the game. And in the end, it's completely not on the same level. So it doesn't get anywhere. All this serious shit and all this sacrificing on realism doesn't get anywhere. It's just, not good anymore. Also, the pacing in the story is very fucking horrible. The progressing shit in the story is just very horrible, because you can be introduced to a person in like a mission, then 3 missions after that, now I'm dead, and it just doesn't work so well. You just met this guy and he's already dead. And what makes that even more horrible is that it wasn't like that in the middle part of the game. In the beginning of the game, it was like that a couple of times, but in the middle part, it wasn't like this. It was good. The story was good, but then after the middle part, it started deteriorating, and all this jumping forward, and you're introducing a guy in this mission, then one mission after that, now he's dead, or now he has some big problem that you need to save him, but you already met him and shit. So the story, it tries to get somewhere but doesn't get anywhere. It tries to be serious to get somewhere, but in the end it doesn't get anywhere. And like I said, it tries to be serious sometimes, and sometimes they actually succeed, but sometimes, the majority of the time, they don't succeed. And with the pacing being awful, is that there's a bunch of cuts that always seems to delete time and explanations. And with the gameplay is just too damn easy, and it's some repetitive melee combat as all hell, and it's also auto aim. I mean, it's so easy that you probably won't die a single time in this game. Those sequences when you do die, it's probably because of the controls being beyond horrible. So in the end, Sleeping Dogs, it's not better than your average sandbox game, but it's not shit either, it's just bad. Not horrible, just bad. I mean, it works sometimes, but most of the time it doesn't work. The story tries to be serious, but most of the time it doesn't work either. The combat, the gameplay is just too repetitive and too easy. No challenge whatsoever. During the middle part of the game, where there's a lot of character that they build up, I mean, also with the characters, like I said before, they only build up those characters that something's going to happen to. But the problem is when something has happened to all of them, no good character will exist anymore, meaning that the only character that exists is your character, the rest are just introduction characters. And then the story just really goes downhill really fast. What I mean is that the only characters that they build up are characters that something's going to happen to. But after something's going to happen to everyone, and when something has happened to everyone, they won't exist anymore, which means there aren't any good characters left in the game. And that's not good. So anyway, in the end, Sleeping Dogs, it's the bad game. Not horrible, not mediocre, just bad.